Now, he will go into the identity things, things identity, and then personal identity, and then we'll go into, he called it where does your mind reside, because they couldn't take away the concept of soul, so they call it the mind, or the conscious now they call it, consciousness. So, do you have any question before we go to the next one? On death, and is it clear?
Sorry, what did you say about when you will be welcomed in paradise, when you're in grave, there will be a part of paradise that will be shown to you?
You wouldn't be sitting in a grave on the ground. You will be sitting in a piece of paradise around your grave. Your spirit
so you will not be in the, like your spirit will not be in the
No,
grave.
if you go to talk to the grave, the person is not under the ground. It's around where he is buried. So that's alam al-barzakh. It's a different dimension. Because somebody might be burned into ashes and gone. Where is the ashes? Somebody might be swallowed by fish, eaten by many wild animals. Where's your grave? No grave. It's the spirit. Your soul in a piece of paradise, enjoying yourself, or the kafir will be a hole in hell. Now,
is it the Illijeen and Sijjeen you were saying?
is it what?
Illijeen and Sijjeen mentioned in the Quran. The souls are kept after the questioning and they're kept in Illijeen or in Sijjeen.
Sijjeen. No, that's in a part of hell.
Yes, and Illijeen.
Part of hell itself. Hell is the entrance to hell after the Day of Judgment. The grave itself will be piece of hell, but not hell itself.
What about the questioning, though, of
The spirit.
Of this? Oh,
Yeah, the spirit.
the three questions that are going to be asked.
Yeah, we'll be asking the spirit. We'll not be asking, because that's what I said. If the body went to ashes, nothing to do. And this body, you're not going to come back to this body. The body will be new body to stand and stay in hell, in paradise forever, or in hell forever. It will be new biology, new physics, new biology, new existence.
Could you just remind me where the soul resides from the point of death up until Judgment Day, physically where
Allah Azza wa Jal said, وَبَيْنَهُمَا بَرْزَخٌ إِلَى يَوْمِ يُبْعَثُونَ. Between your body and your soul is a barzakh, alam al-barzakh, or a different dimension. So your soul will be a different dimension, in different dimension. Not in the physical existence, because you don't have, the soul is not a physical existence.
But is that on earth? Is that on earth here, in the dunya? The
The Prophet ﷺ said your soul will be around your grave, but it's not in your grave. Wherever his grave is, wherever he dies, the body will be around there, where the fish ate him, or the wild animals, or the bird, or the ashes. وَبَيْنَهُمَا بَرْزَخٌ إِلَى يَوْمِ يُبْعَثُونَ. And that's and they will meet each other. There's a lot of hadith that you meet your ancestors and they talk. And the Prophet ﷺ said, when they go and meet the ancestor, they will ask about, what about Ahmad and Ali and Abdul and whatever. I said, no, Abdul died before me. He didn't go to them, so they will realize that he went to hell. So he's not with the good ones, but he died, so he's with the bad ones. No.
So just, there was some hadith, that Azab al-Qabr, meaning the punishment of the grave, which is specifically related to doing certain sins. So you'll have, if you're a bad person or you go,
yeah, the Prophet ﷺ was passing a grave,
but that is specific
a graveyard,
punishment.
and he stopped and he said, there's in two graves punished for not too much. One of them was not cleaning himself after urinating, and the other one was gossiping. So he asked for 2 branches of leaves, green leaves, and put it by the graves, and he said, Allah may reduce the punishment while these are green.
Yeah.
But there's other hadiths to tell you, to complement this, that the spirit around
I'm trying to get
around the grave, and there is another ayah, وَإِذَا النُّفُوسُ زُوِّجَتْ. The Day of Judgment, Allah said, when the nufus, when the body meets and joins the spirit. So Allah create the body and bring the spirit back and marry them to each other.
Yeah.
unite.
So what I'm trying to get to is just for my own, is you don't only have someone who's punished and someone who's has, sometimes there is something in between or
The
intermediate.
bodies of martyrs and prophets, they don't rot.
No, I'm saying my point that isn't just punishment, and there's something in between where you're punished a little bit or you're punished in a certain
The spirit
way.
will be, not the body.
The spirit.
Yeah, the spirit will be punished, not the body. Because the body, as I said, the body could be anywhere. Like could be in tummies of animals or fish or burned somewhere and turned into ashes, blown by the wind. So, but the hadiths complement each other. So, when the summary is that. Right, any more questions?
Just a very quick one on the, if the soul was residing around the point where the person died, let's say it was the graveyard, do you know from your experience whether the majority of schools of thought of the various madhabs, do they unanimously agree on that, or is there differences?
It's in the Quran.
It isn't, okay.
Yeah, بينهما برزخ. It's in عالم البرزخ. It's in the Quran. It's not like weak hadith or daif hadith or something.
On the diagram behind you, the blue one, with the what is the body? What is the body?
Wait till we see the film, because that belongs to the next topic.
Crash Course Philosophy is brought to you by Squarespace. Squarespace, share your passion with the world.
There's an ancient Greek legend about a ship that launched from the port of Theseus and sailed around the world. Probably not around the whole world, just around the world. During its journey, the ship encountered many dangers. Storms ravaged its sails, which had to be replaced. The floorboards gradually gave way and had to be changed out one by one. Eventually, crew members decided that they liked the look of some island or another along the way and stayed behind. And as the ship sailed on, more and more of it and its crew was replaced until finally, not a single original plank of wood or hand on deck remained. Now here's the question. When the ship finally returned to Theseus, was it the same ship that left? The answer, whether we can find it or not, lies in the concept of identity. Philosophers describe identity as the relation that a thing bears only to itself. So whatever makes a thing uniquely what it is defines its identity. And if two things are identical, they're said to share an identity relation. Now, whether two things are the same might seem blindingly obvious, but of course it isn't. Because the philosophy of identity can get pretty slippery, largely because, like the ship of Theseus, things change. And when they do, they eventually stop being what they are and become something else. This goes not just for mythological ships, but for all kinds of things. Like this mug can acquire a new identity, and this money, and you, and even Batman. So, riddle me this. Is Batman identical to Bruce Wayne? And when I say identical, I don't mean that they just look alike. I mean that they share the same identity. They're literally one and the same. So you might think the answer is yes. Bruce Wayne and Batman are identical because everyone knows that Bruce Wayne is the man behind the cowl. Not only that, you might say Bruce Wayne is the very essence of Batman. He saw his parents get killed in that alley. He became the Dark Knight. No one else could take his place. But hold up. People have taken his place. It turns out that Dick Grayson, the original Robin, has pinch hit for Batman, donning the cape and cowl to protect the streets of Gotham in his boss's absence. And so has Police Commissioner Jim Gordon. After Bruce Wayne was reported dead, he reluctantly accepted the role himself. Both of those guys have been Batman. So if the person inside the costume doesn't make Batman Batman, then what does? 17th century German philosopher Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz came up with a principle that might help us solve the puzzle of who Batman is. He called it the indiscernibility of identicals. The idea is that if any two things are identical, then they must share all the same properties. If Leibniz is right, then the ship of Theseus became a new ship as soon as that first plank of wood was replaced. As soon as its parts were not all original, then the ship suddenly suddenly acquired a new property, and with a new property came a new identity. So likewise, Bruce Wayne and Batman can't be identical because they have different properties. Bruce Wayne, for example, has the property of being a millionaire playboy, but Batman doesn't. That guy is all business. Meanwhile, Batman has the property of having fought the Joker, but Bruce Wayne doesn't. And the different versions of Batman aren't identical to each other either, because the person wearing the costume, even if it's the exact same costume, which it usually isn't, is going to have different combat techniques and even, say, a different moral code. So, is there a limit to how much something can change and still be the same thing? Let's head over to the thought bubble for some flash philosophy. Think about this puzzler, originally offered by contemporary American philosopher Alan Gibbard. A sculptor takes a lump of clay and names it Lumpel. She then forms Lumpel into a statue, which she names Goliath. Are Lumpel and Goliath identical? Our intuition might say yes, because they're composed of exactly the same amount of the same physical stuff. It's been kneaded and molded into a different shape, but still no part of Lumpel is not Goliath, and no part of Goliath is not Lumpel. But consider this. If we wreck the statue and smush it into a big blob, Goliath is gone because part of what it means to be Goliath is to be shaped like a statue. But Lumpel, being a lump, doesn't have a set shape, so it will remain after Goliath has been destroyed. So on one hand, Gibbard observed, Lumpel and Goliath seem to be identical because they're the same exact thing, just in different shapes. But on the other hand, how can Lumpel and Goliath be identical if one can exist while the other does not? Thanks, Thought Bubble. One way to try and make sense of identity and explain how an object endures over time is by making a distinction between what we call essential and accidental properties. Essential properties are the core elements needed for a thing to be the thing that it is. Accidental properties are traits that could be taken away from an object without making it a different thing. Think about a dog. A dog without a tail is still a dog. Give him a shave or a silly poodle do, don't let it bark, you still have a dog. So all those things are accidental properties, and they're pretty easy to pick out. But it can be really tough to find its essential properties, the things that if they were absent would make the dog not a dog anymore. And the more something changes, the harder it can be to determine its identity. A tree can lose its leaves and still be a tree, but if you cut the tree up and make it into a bunch of notebooks, is it still a tree? And if you think a notebook is not a tree, then at what point in the process did the tree lose its tree-ness? Was it when it was cut down and thus no longer living? Maybe, but isn't a dead tree still a tree? Or did it happen when the tree was cut into pieces and was lying on the ground? Did it make a difference when those pieces were collected? How about when they were ground up into pulp? The tree stopped being a tree when its essential property was lost, but when exactly that happened, it depends on your perspective. Plus, many thinkers reject the concept of essential properties altogether. Existentialists, for example, deny the very existence of essential properties, and ancient Greek philosopher Heraclitus famously said that you can't step in the same river twice. What he meant was, nothing is identical to itself because everything, including both you and the river, is changing all the time. So not only is the ship of Theseus a new ship by the time it gets back to Theseus, but it was a new ship the first time anything about it changed. Now, it's amusing enough to think about whether ships and trees endure over time or what makes Batman Batman, but ultimately, why should you care? How does this affect your life? Well, if objects are important to you, then you'll want to know whether you have the same object that you think you have. And when it comes to tangible stuff, we tend to value persistent identity. If you take $20 out of my wallet and buy lunch and then stop by an ATM and replace it, is the money that you gave me identical to what I had this morning? If Nick breaks my favorite coffee mug here and replaces it with a new one, and I can't tell the difference, do I still have the same mug I started with? What if your dog runs away while I'm house sitting for you and I replace your dog with a new dog that is so similar you can't tell? Is it the same dog? What's the difference between the money and the cups and the dogs? Philosophers actually have a word that explains why we think one $20 bill is the same as another, but one corgi isn't the same as her cosmetically identical sister. It's fungibility, the property of being interchangeable with other objects of the same kind. Most people think that money is fungible because it's just a placeholder for the value it represents, and the value is what we really care about. As long as there's a $20 bill in my wallet to buy me some nice Thai drunken noodles, I really don't care whether it's the same one I put there or not, though I would like to know what you're doing digging around in my wallet. Now, the coffee mug. This one's interesting. It seems like what matters here is why that mug that Nick broke was my favorite. If I loved it because it's the perfect size and shape to fit in my hands and it keeps my coffee warm, then I'd probably be just as happy with a new one. So in that case, the mug appears to be fungible. But if I love the mug for personal reasons, like say it was the first Crash Course Philosophy mug ever manufactured, or it was a gift from my dad, then a new one, even if it's cosmetically the same, wouldn't mean the same thing to me. Because it might be that what I care about isn't the mug at all, but some sort of abstract idea behind the mug, like my love for a crash course or the connection between my dad and me. In any case, I gotta ask, Nick, just be more careful when you're around my stuff. Today, we learned about different ways of understanding identity, including the indiscernibility of identicals and essential and accidental properties. We thought about how change does and doesn't affect identity and what it means for a thing to persist over time. And
Right, so he spoke about the identity, essential property and accidental property, and persistent identity, when what makes you resist to continue to be the same person. Now, you want to mention something about the slide, or shall we carry on? Abada, you're right. Yeah. Now, in Islam, subhanAllah, I mean, that's really very, very interesting, because Allah Azza wa Jalla said in the Quran, وَإِن مِّن شَيْءٍ why it's not moving? Yeah. يُسَبِّحُ لَهُ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ. That everything praise Allah Azza wa Jal in the heavens and the earth. وَإِن مِّن شَيْءٍ is another ayah, it's not there. وَإِن مِّن شَيْءٍ إِلَّا يُسَبِّحُ بِحَمْدِهِ. Every single thing praise Allah Azza wa Jal. And then the Prophet ﷺ was on a mountain of Uhud, and there were a bit of rumbling. And the Prophet ﷺ put his hand on the mountain of Uhud and he said, Ithbut Uhud, steady Uhud, there is on you, there is a Prophet, and Siddiq, Abu Bakr, and Shahidan, Umar and Uthman. So he was talking to Uhud, a mountain, as it has identity, it has existence, yeah? And also, he said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Uhud is a mountain who loves us and we love it. There's love between Uhud and, so you might have the remote control, might love you. If you throw it on your son, then he'll hate you. And I know that some scholars, you know, we call them Ahlullah, the people of Allah Azza wa Jal. He took his shoes and he threw it and he had like, you know, you hurt me, Allah hurt you, so be careful, you know, put your shoes quietly, you know, respect your chair, respect your, so they have existence in Islam. And this is very famous hadith. When the Prophet ﷺ was giving khutbah at the beginning, he used to lean on part of a tree. And when they made the minbar for him and he stood on the minbar, all the Sahaba in the mosque heard the part of the tree crying, mourning like the mourn of the camel, the she camel. So the Prophet ﷺ came back and comforted her, and he said, you know, be pleased to know that you'll be with me in Jannah. And they took that branch of tree and they buried it. And he said, if I didn't do that, it will keep mourning till the day of judgment, because she was in touch with the Prophet ﷺ and it lost that touch. Imagine the personality, but it has existence. Personal identity is the next one, and see what he says, and then we'll say what the Quran says. Do you have any questions for Movin? Any questions? Carry on.
Crash Course Philosophy is brought to you by Squarespace. Squarespace, share your passion with the world.
who is the doctor? Is it this guy or this one? How about him? As any good Whovian knows, the answer is yes, all of them. But also, wait. No. In the show Doctor Who, each incarnation of the Doctor has a completely different body, different mannerisms, likes and dislikes, and to some extent, memories. So, how are they all the Doctor? Science fiction is great at giving us scenarios to grapple with that seem far out and only barely possible. But when you think about it, the issue of who is who isn't really that much more clear-cut in real life. The fact is, you can take the same questions I asked about the Doctor and ask them about anyone. Like, me. I mean, are these people any more similar to each other than these people? Last time we we talked about identity, or basically what makes an object the same over time. And the concept can get more complex when we talk about our own identity, or the identity of others. When talking about ships or trees, we might be willing to say, yeah, okay, that's just not the same thing it used to be. But we're talking about, say, me? I have the strong belief that I am the same person that mom and dad brought home from the hospital back in 1980. I'm the same kid that cut his hand open on that broken flower pot. I have the scar to prove it. And there's some guy in the future who's still gonna be me, even though he'll be all stooped over and wrinkled and gray. At least I hope. And you probably think of yourself in the same way, that you'll keep being the same person from birth to death. But you could argue, and some have, that the only thing that really remains constant about you your whole life is your name. And for some of us, even that changes. Philosophers have struggled with the issue of personal identity for a long time, trying to find that special something, that essential property that makes you you, the thing that preserves your identity through time and through all the changes that come with it. Let's take a look at some of the ideas they've come up with. First, there's the body theory. This is the sort of default position that most people have, and the assumption that Doctor Who messes with so badly. It says that personal identity persists over time because you remain in the same body from birth to death. And now, in a sense, that's true. I don't know anybody outside of like Freaky Friday that's had a body transplant, but it's not like you consist of all of the same identical stuff that you had when you were born. You've sloughed off and replaced your outer layer of skin, for example, hundreds of times so far. Your red blood cells only live for about 4 months before they're cycled out. Even your skeleton is constantly being remodeled. So kind of like the Doctor or the ship of Theseus, you're constantly being replaced by new physical versions of yourself. And if you are your body, then how much of you can change until you become a new you? Can you get a haircut? What if you lose or gain a lot of weight, or grow a beard, or put John Travolta's face on your face? Let's go over to the thought bubble and explore the ideas of our bodies and ourselves with some flash philosophy. 20th century English moral philosopher Bernard Williams proposed a thought experiment to make us consider where we think our personal identity resides. It goes something like this. You and I have been kidnapped by a mad scientist. He tells us that tomorrow morning he's going to transfer all of your mental content, all of your beliefs, memories, personality, everything into my brain. And then he's going to move all of my mental content into your brain. Presumably this is how he earned the title of mad scientist. But he also tells us that after the procedure is complete and your mental content is in this body and my mental content is in yours, he'll give one of the bodies $1 million and the other body will be tortured. And he's decided to let you pick which body gets the torture and which one gets the cash. What do you decide? Your answer should give you a clue about where you think your identity lies. Thanks, Thought Bubble. Now, our friend John Locke didn't cotton to the idea that the most essential aspect of a person is her body. For Locke, the thing that makes you you is the non-physical stuff, your consciousness. But Locke recognized that we don't maintain a single consciousness over the course of our entire lives. We go to sleep every day, but when we wake up, our conscious selves remember who we were the day before. So Locke posited a memory theory of personal identity. He believed that your identity persists over time because you retain memories of yourself at different points, and each of those memories is connected to one before it. Now, we don't remember every single moment. I mean, do you remember what you ate for lunch last Tuesday? But you can probably remember a time when you did remember that, like, say, last Tuesday afternoon. And if you can remember that version of yourself, then you're still connected to the Tuesday at lunch person through a chain of memory. And this process can take us a lot farther back than last Tuesday. Locke said that if you can remember back to your first day of kindergarten, you maintain a memory link to that person. Sure, your mom also remembers that day, but no one remembers it from the inside. The butterflies in your stomach, the way your new shoes felt stiff after a summer of running barefoot. That's your memory, and since it's yours, you must be the same person who experienced that memory. The memory theory actually makes a lot of sense, but it's got some problems of its own. First off, no one remembers being born. And that's not a bad thing, really. I mean, I imagine none of us would really want to recall that particular experience or the couple of years that we spent after that pooping in our pants. But if personal identity requires a memory, then none of us became who we are until our first memory, which means we all lost at least a couple of years at the beginning. What's more, if you're committed to this view, you have to accept that people stop being the same person if they lose their memories. So, say a person begins to suffer from dementia. Once he's lost the ability to remember his past, does he stop being that person? So the memory theory presents problems for both the beginnings and ends of life, but there's also the issue of false memories. Memory, after all, is notoriously tricky. We know that a group of eyewitnesses are likely to recount the same event very differently, so how do we know that the memories we have are accurate? And if they're not, if things didn't actually happen the way you remember, then how do those faulty memories influence your identity? Do they make you a partially fictional person? So at first, Locke's theory seems to have some advantages over the body theory because consciousness and memory persist through your body's physical changes. But after a little interrogation, you find that memory is pretty tenuous too. Now here's the $64,000 Altarian question. Does any of this really matter? Like, who cares if there's a you that persists from your birth to your death? Maybe all you feel like you need to know is that you have a self that has to go to work and pay bills, and that's plenty. But the matter of personal identity isn't just a conceptual puzzle, it's also deeply important when you're thinking about how you should live your life. For example, do you believe that you have obligations to particular people in your life? Well, if those people don't persist as distinct identities, then your obligations might not either. And the same goes for how people think about you. Your boss only has to give you the raise she promised you if each of you remains the same person you were when she made the promise. In fact, if next Friday you're not the same person anymore, she doesn't even have to pay you. The fact is, we've all built our lives and our society on the expectations that individuals will continue to be who they are unchanged, and those people expect the same thing out of you. So now you can see this really is your problem. You expect a paycheck, you expect people to keep their promises. But as we learned back with Clifford and James and epistemic responsibility, you don't just get to believe things without reason. So if you think you deserve that paycheck, you need to figure out why. Today we talked about personal identity. We considered the two main answers people give to the question of where your identity lies, in your body or in the connected memories of your consciousness. We found some pretty significant problems with each of them, and then we talked about why the persistence of identity is actually something you should care about. Next time we will...
Right, okay. You will see, I mean, you keep seeing, they go and use all sorts of definitions, replace all this with the spirit, then the problem solved. They keep moving from item to item to item to item. The thing is that you have the body given the spirit, you born infant. You have no knowledge. Allah Azza wa Jal said, وَيَخْرُجُكُم مِّن بُطُونِ أُمَّهَاتِكُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ شَيْئًا. You come out of the tummy of your mom, you know nothing. You acquire knowledge. You as a person, كُلُّ مَوْلُودٍ يُولَدُ عَلَى الْفِطْرَةِ. Everyone is born on the fitra. Fitra, the pure belief in Allah Azza wa Jal. The pure spirit, this pure personality. And then they acquire knowledge, and they acquire guidance from families and people and community, and everybody tries to modify them and change them. Now, it is quite clear in the Quran, Allah Azza wa Jal said, when He created Adam, فَإِذَا سَوَّيْتُهُ وَنَفَخْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِي فَقَعُوا لَهُ سَاجِدِينَ. So that blow, the spirit, Allah will blow a spirit from the spirits He created. Everybody will have a spirit. That's you. That's you. He created the body. The body was in paradise for 40 years, lying around. Iblis was passing Adam and poking him. What's that? What's that God created? Obviously, in paradise, you don't need food or drink to stay alive. In paradise, you stay alive by the power of Allah Azza wa Jal. You only started needing food when we ate from the tree, from the forbidden tree. Then we went through the biological changes and we started needing food and drink and toilet, so we had to leave paradise. Can't live there. There isn't a toilet over there. So you were created there in paradise, given the spirit. The spirit gave him the consciousness. He woke up. And now there's a lot of talk about consciousness. I listened to quite a lot of lectures. They are in a mess. They're just avoiding the word spirit. Because the spirit what will stay alive after you leave. Your personality change, your body, in fact, as he said, the atoms stay only maximum 3 months. Your body is not you because it changed. The atom came with me when I was born with my mom ages ago. And acquired more atom and left me, more atom and left me, all of us. When you say somebody after 3 months, he's totally new person. Because the atom you knew, gone. The first few seconds or split of second, is that the same person? Then, yes, it is. it happens every time you leave somebody for more than 3 months. That's the way to so that the spirit came from Allah Azza wa Jal. And Allah Azza wa Jal said, يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الرُّوحِ. They ask you about the spirit. Say, the spirit is if some say it's command from Allah Azza wa Jal, some say a matter belongs to Allah Azza wa Jal, and some say it's an order from Allah Azza wa Jal. And وَمَا أُوتِيتُم مِّنَ الْعِلْمِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. You have been only given little of knowledge, and some say a little knowledge in general, and some say little knowledge about the spirit. So you might have little knowledge about the spirit, but not a lot. Because it's something you cannot take out of the body and have a look, or test under the microscope, or see, do any experiment on it. You can't use your scientific methods to find out what the spirit like, or where is it. Only person have a spirit or gone. When the spirit leaves the body, your identity go. All of us, when a person dies, you don't say, where is Ahmad or Muhammad? You say, where is the body? Where is the deceased? Where is the coffin? The first thing you lose is your name. Amazing. And the first thing you're given when you're born, your name. The first to lose your name. And Allah Azza wa Jalla said, يَا أَيُّهَا النَّاسُ اتَّقُوا رَبَّكُمْ الَّذِي خَلَقَكُم مِّن نَفْسٍ وَاحِدَةٍ. Nafs is in the Quran considered singular female, addressed as singular female. So all our spirits the same, men and women, the same, according to the first ayah of Surah An-Nisa. All of us the same spirit. The body is different. The body give you the male and female. The spirit is the same. And that's when we talk about these LGBT, I'm a man in a body of a woman. You are not. You don't. Spirits have no gender. The spirit have no gender. All the spirits the same. And we consider people equal because their spirits are equal. Their body different. Could be tall, could be short, could be black, could be white, could be man, could be woman. Different. The spirit's the same. This is why you have to consider the fetus is a person, and the newly born is a person. The one with severe learning disability is a person. The one who is demented is a person. Your memory doesn't decide who you are. Otherwise, those disabled have no value, like Hitler did. So we are all created from one single soul, not from Adam type of soul. من نفس واحدة, it's the same. Because here, when you look into the Arabic, Wahida is female. So we are not created from Hawa, no, from Eve, and we are not created from Adam. Eve is not created from Adam, not from his rib, as people think. Because none of the hadith or ayah say that we are created, or Eve created from Adam. Created from a rib, yes. And the man has X, Y, and the woman has X with the extra rib. That's the rib. Probably that's the rib Allah meant, that extra rib. And that actually medically gives all the criteria of women. XX, a woman. Why? Because she has an extra rib. That extra rib, in Arabic, ضلع. We say ضلع. In Arabic we say, has 4 أربعة أضلاع. The X has 4 limbs. 4 ضلع. This have 3 ضلع. This have 3 ضلع, this have 4. So that extra rib made the woman. It has the body. This is the body. Nothing to do with the spirit. Spirit the same. And if you want to think whether Adam created from Eve or Eve created from Adam, according to this ayah, if you take it literally, it's Adam created from Eve. Which is not. None of them created from the other. And Allah is not short of ability to create a new creature. He doesn't clone. And if women cloned from Adam, should have XY. And they're not. And that's the trap the Christianity fell into. We're not. So the ayah here takes us out of that mess. We all have the same spirit. And وَخَلَقَ مِنْهَا زَوْجَهَا. زَوْجَهَا gives the impression a man. Created from her. Minha, from her. While it's not. He created with the same type, its mate. So neither Adam created from Eve, nor Eve created from Adam. The people who want to take literal Quran will take it as it is literally. It's actually here man created from the woman, which is wrong. Because Adam created first. Yeah? And Eve wasn't created from his rib, right rib or left rib, and look at the mess they fall into. And you are in control of yourself. You're controlling yourself. And here, Allah Azza wa Jal said, like every human have the command control in his neck.
Sorry, yeah.
The command control of you. The core of you. That the core of you, where do you reside? This will be the next, where do you reside? They say, where is your conscious? Where your mind reside? Some say, where is your conscious reside? So, because they are all sort of, they are in a mess, and they try to just getting out of religious things. They don't want to use it.
Sorry, the neck, it said...
وكل إنسان ألزمناه طائره في عنقه.
What does neck mean?
Neck is...
No, I know, but what does that mean, as in?
We studied whether you have the command control is actually, because there will be now interface between the spirit and the body. That will be the last film, where quantum biology come. Quantum biology now looking into the body, the protein have the ability to behave like a wave. And then now they try to make people change the wave into physical. So, and that will lead them, eventually, when they can do all sorts of research, that yes, the spirit is controlling the body through, probably that's the way, that you're controlling the body because the body acts as a wave and you control the atoms. Because what they said, what they made them refuse the spirit, how the spirit interfaces with the body, how the spirit, which is not material, controlling the body, which is material, with oxygen and hydrogen and potassium and sodium and iron going in and out the cell.
Yeah, but the neck, is that the control?
The limbic system we thought about ourselves, reticular activating system they thought in the brain, what control you. What things you lose your conscious. So they tried to see if you lose the frontal lobe, will you lose your conscious, if you lose the parietal, if you lose the occipital lobe, if you lose the core, if you lose the hypothalamus, if you lose this, what make you lose your conscious? Now, we have, the body is a functioning biology, and you have the spirit controlling what he does with his action. Say nice words, or say nasty words, or break into a bank, or go to the mosque, or be awkward, be a thief, whatever. And that decision by the spirit given to the body. If you have the right body, you should be able to use the body well. The most difficult one when you have personality disorder. Personality disorder, you feel the spirit is nice, but the person acting is really horrible way. Sometimes could be psychopathic, sometimes could be borderline personality, narcissistic personality.
But is that the spinal cord, when it says own neck, is that the spinal cord?
No,
Oh,
don't know.
Oh, we don't know.
Because ألزمناه طائره في عنقه. I was talking to Sheikh Ali Jum'ah, because Allah Azza wa Jal said in another ayah in the Quran, فَاضْرِبُوا